We finished this yesterday. I talked about the chart. Okay. Did I go to the next slide on the melting pot? Did we talk about melting pot and salad bowl? We did all that? Think about that. Talk to Mr. Ferris, because you guys once said you'd heard it before, somebody from Mr. Ferris, right? And he said, yeah, and they don't know my opinion about that either. That's right, Mr. Ferris. You don't. Now, were you guys able to ever figure out whether he was a Republican or Democrat?
Another class did.
I think
That's not going to be an issue in here, is it? I'm sorry. Mr. Ferris is so much better than I am. He's so awesome. I don't know if you feel that way. I think he's awesome. But I'm independent. I'm right down the middle. Moderate. On the fence. I have no opinions. I'm an extreme moderate. As Benjamin Franklin used to say. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I obviously have an opinion about this one. I think the romantic view of the melting pot is quite beautiful. She's going to use me as an example at the next meeting.
this is the way you
Okay. All right. Actually, I spent an hour in the president's office today for something I said yesterday. And then I just got the principal, and I'm getting praise. So I'm 50-50, moderate. There we go. Okay. All right. No, it's all good. It's all good. No huge deal there. I just probably went a little too far in one of my lectures yesterday. I recorded it. Then I told your parents if they came to the parent meeting, they could watch me teach. Apparently somebody did. It's all good. It really, it's okay. Now, I will tell you this, guys. I will try and give generally both sides of this. And so when you look at the salad bowl approach here, I get it. Like, people want to be proud of where they come from, their language, and so forth. My family has been in this country for centuries, both on my mom and dad's side, and I just want everybody to be an American. That's what I want. That's why I like this melting pot thing. I want everybody to kind of melt together, and let's all be like one. Let's be united. Okay, let's focus on our similarities rather than our differences. Okay, and I think that's beautiful, and I have a romantic view of that. And so I am willing to share my opinion on that. And it's not, hopefully you don't do that as in a hateful way towards more the mosaic view or the salad bowl approach. It's not a hateful thing. I just think one's better than the other. And, sharing my feelings about it. Okay, so you guys can have whatever opinion you want. And I will not persecute you for it. And if I haven't told you this yet, okay, again, if I offend anybody in here, please come talk to me and just say, Mr. Ebright, what you said kind of hurt my feelings, or I feel like you should have said that in the classroom. Just come tell me, and I will not hold a grudge against you. I promise. My goal is not to hurt feelings in here. Okay, so please let me know if I do that. Okay. All right. So onward. Okay. So remember, we're still in this Red Scare thing. Okay. Real quick review: labor union violence, race riots, xenophobia, bomb scares, terrorism, right? Reds are coming, the Reds are coming. Okay, Mitchell Palmer, the Attorney General's freaking out. He starts arresting people. Look at this. I took these pictures from Ellis Island. Get blown up. Arrests exceed 5,000. 30 or 2,630 some are put on ships, transports, going back to Europe. Okay, 249 Reds sail exiled to Soviet Union. Okay, so yeah, this is real. Like what I was telling you, like him rounding people up, detaining them, and sending them out. Okay, were there communists in this country? Were some of those communists agitating? Were communists sending mail bombs? I think all those questions are yes. To what extent? This is your kind of your success criteria here. Was the reaction correct by our government, or was it an overreaction? Okay, I mean, think about that. I mean, obviously, some of it was probably the right reaction, and some of it was probably, yes, overreaction. Yes? Yeah. I keep saying it went from bad to worse, and I'm going to say it again. It goes from bad to worse. Okay, on the next slide. And I'm sorry, I can't get the thing to go to the full screen again. I'm trying to get the full screen covered. It's not working. I got to get my technology guy back up here. Okay, but I was doing the same thing I was doing, and now it's not working. The KKK. Can you read that? Hey, how's it going?
Good.
You get lost?
No, you're being loud.
Oh, loud. Did you abandon them?
No, show them.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Chemistry lab, huh? Okay. You're right. It's small, isn't it? I'm so sorry that this is so small. You asked me if I wanted the TV. I'm like, are they going to be able to read it? Yeah. Okay. You've all heard of the KKK, right? So you know when it was founded, right after the Civil War, right? Do you remember who founded it? I can ask these questions to an honors class. Nathan Bedford Forrest. Nice. You saw the movie, Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump? They mention it in the movie, don't they? Nathan Bedford Forrest. Okay? Well, good job. Did you know we had a kid that graduated from high school here last year named Nathan Forrest? He tried out for baseball his freshman year, and look, here's the list of players coming out. What are his parents thinking? Well, obviously they didn't. I doubt they knew. You know what I mean? I doubt they knew. But I told him about it. You know, I told Nathan. I'm like, hey, Nathan, you know this, right? And he's like, what? I hope it doesn't hurt the kid in his life. You know what I mean? Maybe we should go by Nate instead of Nate. His middle name is not that. Okay, so know that. All right, guys. The Klan started out in Tennessee. Okay, you know, it really booms during this time period with all this fear, and then you start throwing in, you know, foreigners, it's communists. Okay, now, in order to be a member of the Klan, generally, you got to be white. You got to be Protestant. Okay? Remember, the majority of Americans during this time were white and Protestant. Yes? Now, I'm not making comparisons here, but you've all heard of something called the Knights of Columbus, right? Yes? Can I join? Can't join. Why? What? Because I'm a heathen? Is that what you're gonna say? It's okay. Am I angry that I can't join the Knights of Columbus? Do I look angry? No, I'm not angry. Now, wait a second. Can you join the Knights of Columbus? Why? Because you're a girl. Ah. Ladies, are you angry? Or is it okay with you that there's an exclusively Catholic men's organization that does wonderful things for charities? And they worship God. Are you angry about that, lady? I'm not angry about that. You're angry? Okay. He's saying you're angry. Okay. Now, here's the thing. You could join the Klan if you were a Protestant, so nothing wrong with that. This whole white thing, that's different. Do you have to be white to join the Knights of Columbus? No. That makes it okay. We have the First Amendment freedom of religion in this country, guys. Okay? Discrimination by race, that's not really looked upon so favorably these days. Okay? Now, back then, different. What did we have? We have Jim Crow, right? Segregation of the races, yes? Now, what I really want to talk about is how pervasive the Klan was. 4.5 million members in the early 1920s. You guys know the entire state of population of Kansas is 3 million people. There's 4.5 million Klansmen and women. Okay? Now, it's pervasive in the South, but it's nationwide. So like this thing I pulled off the internet, you may not be able to see it, Knights of the KKK, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Flag Day celebration. Everybody's invited. If you're white and Protestant. Okay? Now, you ever see this movie or read the book, A Time to Kill? It's got Samuel L. Jackson in it and Matthew McConaughey. It's a great book by John Grissom. They made a movie out of it. Great movie. Samuel L. Jackson, you guys all know is black, right? So in the movie, Samuel has a 12-year-old daughter that gets raped and savagely beaten by a couple of rednecks. So this takes place in the 60s. Okay? Now, they're going to put these two rednecks on trial for rape and assault. Now, how do you know that members of the jury in this fictional Mississippi are not members of the Klan? In fact, what are the chances that at least one of them are a member of the Klan? How do you know the judge isn't a member of the Klan? How do you know the cops or the deputies were not members of the Klan or friends with the Klan members? You don't. How is somebody going to get justice for their family if they're black in the South when the Klan is so pervasive and so powerful? The fact is, generally, they're not going to get justice. And guys, that is injustice. It's wrong, and it needs to stop. And it took us decades and decades to fix that. Now, the media, the newspapers, mostly owned by white Protestants, early on didn't really expose the Klan for what it was doing, which was terrorizing communities and human beings. But in 1925, the Indiana Grand Dragon, the head of a state chapter of a Klan, the state Klan, it could be the Grand Wizard or the Grand Dragon, is convicted of murder. And the newspapers finally begin to expose the Klan for what it had become, which is a terror organization. And so the numbers of the people that want to associate with the Klan begin to drop, which is good. Okay? And it will through the 30s and the 40s. But when we get to the 50s and the 60s, we're going to see again a resurgence of the Klan because we're trying to get rid of Jim Crow. We're trying to get rid of segregation. That case up there, Brown versus Board. What board are we talking about? Board of Education where? Topeka, Kansas. What year? Close. 1954. Okay? Guys, when the Supreme Court starts, we start desegregation, getting rid of Jim Crow, the Klan comes back. Stronger. Okay? And they begin to terrorize people again. Voting rights in the South. Okay? We'll get there, guys, in this class. We'll get to the civil rights. Okay? But this is a scourge. Klan is a scourge. Now, today I can happily report to you that the Klan today is a shell of its former self. It's very small. And most Americans today see it for what it is, which is basically a bunch of ignorant people that have hate in their heart. That's all it is. A bunch of ignorant people that like to hate other people. Okay? But I do want you to be aware, guys, that the Klan used violence not just against blacks, guys, but it was also against Jews and Catholics and immigrants. Okay, and a lot of the immigrants coming during this time, Catholic. Okay, so I want you to know that. Now, we'll take this to another incident that arises from all of this fear. Okay, and that is the case of Sacco and Vanzetti. Now, before I tell you their first names, you might be able to figure out where these two immigrants are from. They're from Italy. Niccolo Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti. Okay? Two Italian immigrants. They will be accused of breaking into a shoe factory in Boston, killing the security guard, then killing the paymaster and robbing the shoe factory. Now, I've been talking about Mr. Willis, okay? First-year teacher. When I was a first-year teacher, first time I taught this, I was literally, guys, like 4 hours ahead of my students. I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go through this book, which was the textbook we were using when I started teaching here. I would make notes out of this textbook, print them out, type them up, print them out, and then put them on a clear sheet and put them up on the overhead projector and project them to my wall. Remember the old overheads? I got one back there. Bulb shot. Bulbs are expensive. Found this one. I'm going to try it out. See if I can get it to work again. I don't remember Sacco and Vanzetti from college. I didn't remember it from high school. So what am I doing? Taking notes from the book, taking my knowledge from the book, the textbook. So if you guys will indulge me, let me read to you from the textbook. Like 3 paragraphs, okay? Can you stay awake while I do this? Every epic in American history has its martyrs. You guys are Catholic, you know what martyrs are. Their names enter the folklore. John Brown was the willing martyr in the fight against slavery. Remember crazy John Brown? In this later age, Niccolo Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti, two Italian-born immigrants, became unwilling martyrs, listen, unwilling martyrs in the struggle for equal justice for all. In a 1920 holdup, the Boston Shoe Factory, a paymaster and guard were killed. Shortly afterward, Sacco and Vanzetti were arrested. They were both gentle men with no criminal record, but they believed in the philosophy of anarchy. They were tried, found guilty, and sentenced to death. There was no solid evidence against them. The belief in the innocence of Sacco and Vanzetti was so widespread that in 1927, before their execution, the governor of Massachusetts put together a committee to review the fairness of the trial. But the committee itself was loaded with prejudice. The author of its report, Harvard President Lawrence Lowell, long an officer of the Immigration Restriction League, which is on 2 slides earlier, that said you had to be able to read to be coming into the country. He was well known for his belief in the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon people. It's not surprising that this report said that the trial had been fair. When Sacco and Vanzetti were executed, millions of Americans mourned. They believed that the two gentle Italian immigrants were really victims of fear and prejudice. Now, what kind of picture did that book just paint for you? That 2 innocent men were arrested, tried, and convicted, and then killed that were innocent. They paint that picture for you? And that's the picture I painted for my students 25 years ago. As a good teacher, as good teachers do, they learn more about what they teach. They read about it. They study it. So a couple years later, I was reading a book called History of the American People by Paul Johnson. Paul Johnson, I got, halfway through this book or 3/4 through this book, and he starts talking about Sacco and Vanzetti. Oh, I'm like, cool, I teach about this. So let me read. And he starts talking about a guy named Upton Sinclair that wrote a 2-volume novel on this story. Now, you may have heard of Upton Sinclair. He's a famous American author. His most famous work, most likely, The Jungle. You guys remember hearing about The Jungle? It's about the meatpacking industry in the United States. Now, you know a little bit about it? Okay. Now, in this book on the meatpacking industry, he talks about how, somebody's using a sharp instrument. They cut off a finger. It falls into the vat that makes the hamburger, and it just gets crushed in there with the hamburger you buy at the store. Or that there's rats in the meatpacking, and the rat feces, and rats themselves find their way into your meat. Now, do you think if Upton Sinclair just added a couple more sensational things to this book, it would sell more copies? Hollywood it up a little, gin it up a little, because that's what people want to read. They want to read something that's sensational. It makes it more interesting, yes? So Upton Sinclair writes a 2-volume novel. He's got a bunch of researchers, and interviewed many years later, Upton Sinclair admits that after doing all the research for this book on Sacco and Vanzetti, they were left with no doubt these 2 men had committed the murders. Yet he wrote the book proclaiming their innocence. Why? Because that's what people wanted to read. That's going to sell more books. So a couple of years later, I'm reading a magazine, and I find this article about Sacco and Vanzetti, in an estate sale in California. You guys know what an estate sale is, right? Somebody dies and they just sell all their stuff. Well, the guy that had died was the son of one of the lawyers for Sacco and Vanzetti. And in the letters that they found at this estate sale, there's a letter from one of the men describing to the lawyer how they committed the break-in of the shoe factory and committed the robbery and murder. These guys were guilty. Yet, everybody proclaimed their innocence. This is a cause célèbre, is what you call it. Now, let me ask you a question. If you remember this, it's about 4 years ago. Remember this phrase, hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot. Anybody? Give me some indication if you've heard that. Okay. That came out of the case of Ferguson, Missouri. Okay, the other one was, I can't breathe. Right? That was the George Floyd thing, right? I can't breathe. Okay, hands up, don't shoot came out of Ferguson, Missouri, in the case of Michael Brown. Michael Brown was a 6'5" black man that weighed about 250 pounds who had just robbed a convenience store and assaulted a clerk. He was walking down the middle of the road in Ferguson, Missouri. And a cop came up to him and said, "You need to get out of the middle of the road." Michael Brown turned on that police officer, Officer Wilson, repeatedly punching Wilson, went for his gun. Wilson was able to fend him off, and he shot Ferguson, who was unarmed. Michael Brown's friend, who was there, said Michael Brown put his hands up and said, "Don't shoot." Now, they're going to charge Officer Wilson with an unlawful shooting here. So they got to bring charges. So you have a grand jury. You bring in people from the community that will be the grand jury, and you bring in witnesses to the event. And guys, there were a bunch of witnesses that saw this happen, and they were all black. This was a black neighborhood. Not one witness in front of the grand jury said Michael Brown put his hands up and said, "Don't shoot." Yet the NBA players were wearing T-shirts. NFL players were wearing T-shirts. Hands up, don't shoot. It's all based on a lie. What is my point? Don't trust what I say, because I had it wrong for 3 years. Don't trust what CNN says. Don't trust what Fox News says. Get your information from more than one source, and then come to your own conclusions. Okay? Just like the interview you're going to do. There's more than one side to a story. Okay? And so you're going to have to figure this out yourself. Okay? But I like to bring this up, I kept that book just for this story. Okay, and because I felt bad because I was misleading my students because I didn't know. Okay, and I was teaching them something that I didn't know a lot about. Okay, so now I know a lot more about a lot. So hopefully what I'm giving you is fairly accurate information. So guys, this has been a drag, right? Like we've been talking about terrorism, violence, racism, and all kinds of. Can we talk about something a little more spirited? Is that okay? Thank you for laughing. Regular kids didn't laugh a lot. Had a couple. And it's really not that funny, but. Oh my gosh. This is one of the dumbest things we've ever done as a country. Take something that the majority of the population does and make it illegal. That's going to work out well. Now, who can we blame for such a bad idea? Who can we blame for such a bad idea? Him? Why am I in this section of the room right now? We're going to blame women for this, okay? I'm kidding. No, you remember something called the women's temperance movement? You guys ever talk about this? Remember Carrie Nation? The old lady with the hatchet? This is the devil's juice, man. The devil's juice. Men going to work, getting a paycheck, going to the saloon, getting drunk, gambling, coming home drunk, beating on their wives and children. We had enough of this. Right, ladies? We had enough of this. Now, in order to pass a constitutional amendment, ladies and gentlemen, you got to have 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress and 3/4 of the state legislatures to ratify it, which times 34 states. Now, how many members of Congress were women? 0. So blame the men for listening to their women. Actually, we can just blame, you know what we can blame? White Protestants. You know, those holy rollers, those Puritans, those fundamentalists. It's on your homework. Fundamentalists. Right? That first question about religious fundamentalism. Billy Sunday? Oh, no. Billy Sunday, no alcohol, baby. No alcohol. Okay? Yeah, this is not a good idea. But, yeah, guys, there's a lot of social problems here with alcohol. There really is. Now, I can speak from experience. I grew up, both of my parents were alcoholics. Okay? They drank every night. My mom drank vodka. My dad drank gin. They both drank vodka and gin on the rocks. You know what that means? Straight. Ice. The rocks. No mixer. Ugh. I can't do that. That's disgusting. Okay? It did create problems. Okay? In my family. So I have to be very careful about it. Because you guys know, you have parents that have addictive personalities. That is an inherited trait. Did you know that? So my sister and I have to be very careful about alcohol. Okay? I got to tell you guys, during COVID, when we were locked down, couldn't go to work, didn't have nothing to do, I started drinking every day. Yeah, I don't anymore. Okay? But, you know, I started using it. I started abusing it. Okay? And it you know, it's a numbing agent, allows you to kind of get away from your problems temporarily and stuff like that. And it's not healthy. Okay? Now, that being said, I like to bring this up, and I know I'm recording this, and maybe I'll get in trouble again. I don't care. Okay? So let's talk about it. Which is worse for society? Alcohol or marijuana? Now, more people drink than they smoke, right? Well, it's not legal here, state of Kansas. All right, let me ask the same question. But let's move to Colorado. Which is a greater burden on society in Colorado? Marijuana or alcohol? You could probably say that, guys. You got a bunch of stoners out there that don't want to work. They just want to be stoned. I mean, would you take the guy with the beer belly that works an 8, 9, 10-hour day and comes home and drinks a 12-pack with the guy that's a stoner that doesn't want to go to work, which is a bigger burden on society? Yeah. It's interesting, the reaction between two classes. Between an honors class and a regular class. When you bring this up. Okay. So, you guys think we should legalize it? You want to take a vote? I'm interested to take a vote. I won't turn the camera around on you. Okay? Nobody can tell whether you raise your hand. Should you legalize marijuana? Raise your hand. Okay. So let me just play a little game here, okay? Let's just say, and whoever's watching this, I'm sorry, but this is like, it's part of our society, and so we're just looking at society, okay? Okay, so let's say today's Thursday, okay? Tomorrow's Friday. Let's say Friday, you wanted to find a joint for the weekend, okay? You want to find some marijuana for the weekend. Raise your hand if you would know where to get that tomorrow. Seriously, is that it? You know who to talk to. Okay. What if I ask the same question about alcohol? Okay. If you want to get some alcohol for the weekend, raise your hand if you knew who to talk to get it. Okay. I got more access to alcohol than marijuana in here. Okay. Here's the big question you got to ask yourself. So, obviously, one day, a lot of you guys will have children, okay? And they're going to have access to certain things. What you really, really, really don't want is somebody that's in middle school having access to either of these things. Or really, to be honest, high school. You guys know the brain doesn't fully develop till you're 25 years old. So what you put in, that does destroy brain cells, that does hurt your development. That's real, guys. That's real. That's scientific. Okay? So, I don't recommend either for you guys. But I can't control you. Your parents can't control you. Okay? So, you have to make these decisions for yourself. But the fact is, I worry about the kids. I worry about access. You know what I mean? So obviously most of you have access to alcohol. You know where to get it if you wanted it. Fewer of you have access to marijuana. Are we just going to decriminalize marijuana and create that situation where younger and younger people have access to it? That's what I worry about. Now, guys, I'm a big personal freedom guy, and when you're an adult, I'm pretty firm on this. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. As long as it doesn't hurt you, or excuse me, you can hurt yourself. It doesn't hurt me, or it doesn't hurt children. Okay? All of these things hurt society, but guys, we don't live in a totalitarian government where they can rule over you so they can control everything you do. I don't want to live in that world. But I can tell you from experience, guys. Now, I grew up in the 80s. Okay? So, like, marijuana that was smoked in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, far less potent than the stuff that people buy in the dispensaries in Colorado. The stuff that's in the dispensaries in Colorado is very potent. And you guys have probably had some of you had exposure to like gummies and stuff like that. As a number of hospitalizations, like people that have never done marijuana before, and they eat one of these gummies, some of these little gummies have 100 milligrams of THC in them. And you're going to the hospital. If you've never done marijuana before and you eat 100 milligram one of these things, you're going to freak out. It's going to affect your breathing. Even a 10 milligram that somebody's never done marijuana before, you're likely to have an adverse effect to it, especially for a young person. Okay. Now, I'm not saying a bunch of people die from marijuana because that doesn't happen. Okay. But same thing with alcohol. Most people don't die from it, but it's going to affect your life. Usually negatively. Usually negatively. Now, do I think that there are some very good medical uses for marijuana? Absolutely. People that are going through chemotherapy, some people respond really well to marijuana for nausea. You have medical marijuana for I have a niece that's 35 years old that is autistic, and she's a hitter. She will hit you when she gets frustrated. At 35, she's a hitter. Marijuana helps. Okay? Even things like magic mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, they're having very good success with soldiers that have PTSD, with hallucinogens. Okay? I am not opposed to that. Personally, I'm like, dude, if this helps somebody that's really sick, why are we banning that from their use? And so some states have medical, but that's a slippery slope, because if you have chronic back pain, or you tell the doctor you have chronic back pain, and he gives you a marijuana card, just because you like to smoke marijuana. You know what I mean? But I do know that I have a friend of a friend who has arthritis really bad, and she uses marijuana every day, and it helps her manage that pain of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, it doesn't help everybody. Okay, so these are questions we have to grapple with, guys. Because listen, when we arrest people for marijuana, we put them in jail or we put them through court, that costs a lot of money. Okay, and then you're putting people in jail for nonviolent drug crimes. That costs a lot of money. It ruins people's lives. So these are things that we have to weigh. My big thing is the kids, the access. You know, I mean, I've thought a lot about this, and I guess I'm on the, Puritan side of this. I don't think we should legalize it. I worry about the access. But people are going to do it anyway. Okay. We got 4 minutes? Huh? The bell's ringing. You guys have a great day. See you tomorrow. If I don't get fired.
You get fired, we go on straight.
Okay.